I have to say, I'm so excited to talk to someone who loves SEO because a lot of times I jump onto a podcast interview or into a conversation and people say, well, I don't really love SEO, but hopefully you can make it more understandable. So we can geek out about it a little bit
Right.
today and hopefully make it more fun for everyone who's joining us too.
The following is a conversation I recently had with Sara Dunn. Sara is a wedding SEO specialist, and I was super excited to have this conversation with Sara because I have personally experienced the life transformational results that comes with having a website that is found on Google. And I'm so excited for you all to learn from her so you can experience those life-changing results as well. For those of you who are just hearing about Sara for the first time, she is an SEO wedding specialist. So that means she's working with wedding pros specifically to help them to get found on Google. Sara has a knack for making SEO easy to understand and has created a unique framework that simplifies what it takes for wedding pros to get found on Google by their dream clients. Sara has been featured by Honeybook, special events, and she's also been named WeddingPro Educator of 2023 and has spoken to audiences such as WeddingPro, WIPA, Wedding MBA, and Two Bright Lights. In the last year alone, her framework has helped over 1 million searchers find the wedding pros and advice that they're looking for. If you're ready to reach rockstar status on Google, Sara's ready to be your geeky best friend to help you get there. My name is Allison Legendre, and this is the Music Work Podcast. Please do enjoy. All right, I am here with Sara, and Sara is an SEO expert specifically for wedding pros, and I am so excited for this conversation. SEO is one of my favorite things because I've just experienced life-changing results myself, having a website getting found with Google, and I know you're helping so many people be able to get discovered by their dream clients, which is incredible. So I'm so excited to, spread this message, get people the insight and knowledge they need. So thank you so much for being here today, Sara. How are you doing?
Well, thank you. I'm doing great. And I have to say, I'm so excited to talk to someone who loves SEO because a lot of times I jump onto a podcast interview or into a conversation and people say, well, I don't really love SEO, but hopefully you can make it more understandable. So we can geek out about it a little bit
Right.
today and hopefully make it more fun for everyone who's joining us too.
I love that. And it is one of those things that sounds intimidating, but really once you understand like the benefits and like me personally, I don't love being on a content hamster wheel or depending on paid advertising. So there's just so many benefits of having a website that gets found and just continues to grow without your input. So I think it's magic, and I think we should I think it will be fun for everyone if we can break it down. And I know that you have a superpower of breaking it down for people to make it approachable. So I'm excited for that. But let's just set the stage for those who are like, where are we here? Let's get everyone on the same page. How would you describe what SEO is and why specifically is it important to think about SEO specific to wedding vendors, and what does that wedding SEO specialty look like? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that what is SEO question because I never like to dive into a conversation with any assumptions that people listening have any knowledge. So, SEO stands for search engine optimization, and that basically means the art of influencing where your business or website shows up in the search engine results. And what's really cool about SEO is this is exposure that you're getting for people who are searching online. They need help, they're looking to hire someone, or they have a question. You can bring them into your website 100% for free, and you can become their trusted expert in that process. So, what we do in SEO in studying it and working on it for our businesses is we're just trying to figure out what a search engine like Google is looking for in order to understand and really trust a website. So, people like me, every single day, we study things that Google seems to like and things that Google seems to not like. And then we do more of those good things to help our websites or our client websites to show up higher and get more clicks.
I love that. Such a simple breakdown of what it is that we're doing here. And I think what a lot of people don't realize that it is like those inputs that we can understand, that we can, how we can influence our website, the keywords that people are searching for. These are the things that, it's not like coding or anything like that. That's really complicated. A lot of people have website editors, and these are things that we can understand and tweak for ourselves. So thank you for that breakdown there. It's funny because did I mention how I found you originally?
I'd love to hear.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just like, because I mentioned I am for myself, like having a website that gets found in Google has been like life changing for me, and I've like been learning for a while, and so I went to Google, and I'm just like, who's like, surely there's someone out there who is like an expert on wedding SEO, and sure enough, Sarah, you popped right up, and I'm like, okay, if anyone knows what they're talking about, it's gonna be Sarah, and of course the content I've learned from you since then has been super useful. But the first place I found you was on like through Google through SEO. So guys, Sarah knows her
Woohoo!
stuff. She's been helping thousands of people. So yeah, we're gonna geek out a little bit here, but we're gonna keep it also very beginner friendly because I know for a lot of people there's so many simple tweaks that you can make that are gonna do like most of the work for you, like as opposed to getting all into the tiny details. Sometimes there's a lot of simple things that we can tweak that will make a big difference. So, with that said, when you're looking at wedding pros and their websites, what are some common mistakes that you see and some simple tweaks that you can usually find to make that really gives people a big advantage that are relatively simple? Anything come to mind sort of like that?
Of course, yes. So, what's really interesting to me is that almost every wedding professional who comes to me has some sort of keyword in mind. It's usually
Mhm.
like a location plus a service, or maybe just a description of the service they offer. So, maybe it's Dallas wedding band, maybe it's live wedding musician in Montana, something like that, where it's a location and then a service. And they'll come to me and they'll say, Sarah, I searched for my keyword and I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled through the search results and I couldn't find myself anywhere. And then I take a look at their website and I realize they've never used that exact phrase on their website anywhere. And so
Mm.
the number one mistake that I see is that you're not using the exact keyword that you want to get found for on the website, on the homepage of your website site specifically. And that's where we want to see it. So Google is going to come to your website and essentially they send a little robot who scans through all the content on the page, reads all the words that you have there on the page, and tries to make sense as a human would, like who you are, what do you offer, where do you do it. And too many creative businesses try to make their work sound really creative and beautiful and musical, and then they don't actually use the exact phrase that searchers would be typing into Google in order to find them. So, the number one thing that I recommend to anyone getting started with SEO is think about that most important keyword you want to get found for. Ideally, it has a location where you're located plus a description of your service. And make sure to use that phrase on the homepage of your website. Ideally, maybe in a heading near the top of the page, and then maybe again in a paragraph of text somewhere on the page. And that's like the number one simplest how to get started and the most important thing that you could possibly do. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's perfect. And it's funny because this is exactly what I went through. It's almost like the things that are so familiar to us, like we just it skips in our brain. So we forget to mention like our location, we forget to mention where we are, and we start saying, like you said, all these artsy things. But it's like, no, what is like the keyword that people are typing into Google? It's really that simple. Make sure that that is on the header of your website, and then it connects the dots for those searchers to also feel like they're in the right place because it's how
Yes.
they understand what you do. So yeah, it is that simple thing. I made that mistake for a long time. One of the most common things I see is people forgetting like to mention their location. They can look like this incredible musician or pro or whatever it is, but it's like, is this person approachable? Are they in my area? So yeah, it's those simple things that you can pop into your website editor right now, and that let that sit there for a bit, and that will start getting you the right people. So thank you for sharing that. I'm curious. So now to get into something a little nuanced, that I have debated about and struggled with myself. Sometimes especially in the music niche, there are keywords that are a little bit more obscure. And I'm just curious how you would approach that. For example, I know that like string quartet is searched way more than string trio. But if you have a string trio, then it's like, I'm curious when it comes to like the type of content that happens, you should put on a website. If your homepage is for like what your core offer is, could a professional musician get around that perhaps by making a blog article that's like trio versus quartet and getting in exposure that way at a more high level? How would you approach that situation where people have a more obscure offer that they're trying to describe? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so this is a great question and it applies to so many different categories of businesses where there's a certain way that you might describe what you do and what you offer, but your ideal client doesn't actually know what to call you. They don't use those same
Right.
words. So we see this, for example, in wedding planners as a category too. They're like, well, I don't want to use the phrase wedding coordinator on my website because I do event management instead. I said, but people are searching for wedding coordinator. So that's the
Hmm.
phrase you need to use. So this is why a really good SEO process usually starts with keyword research. And that
Right.
doesn't have to be anything scary, but essentially, what you need to do if you're not sure the right keywords to use for your business is I definitely recommend a process where you brainstorm lots of options and really try to put yourself in the shoes of your ideal client. So, what language might they know? I think that's a great example. String quartet. Think through all of those different things. And then it's really helpful to actually use an SEO tool. So there's one that I usually teach in my course. It's called Uber Suggest. So ubersuggest.com is the place to go check that out. And it's one that allows you to do a few free searches every single day. And what you're able to do is put in a keyword idea, and the tool will actually tell you how many people every single month are searching that keyword on Google. And so you can see if it's a big zero, that's probably not a good keyword to try to optimize for because it's actually not something that people are searching for. And then you can see different options too. If you do that research on a few different keywords, you could see that maybe string quartet is searched much more than live wedding ceremony music, which, are both really options for you. But you can use that information to choose a direction. Which one keyword seems to be searched the most and a good fit for your services? And so there isn't always a perfect answer. Sometimes you have to lean into something that maybe isn't your favorite phrase because you do want to get found. And then hopefully you can guide that searcher toward your offering. I'm not saying to misrepresent yourself, but how can you use phrases that people are actually searching for? I do love the idea of maybe a blog post that clarifies something. So the comparison of string trio versus string quartet definitely could be a way to rank for string quartet without misrepresenting what you have to offer. So definitely think about lots of different options and see if you can put them through an SEO tool to really analyze what seems to be the best and most searched.
I love that, and I'm happy that you mentioned Uber Suggest because that's that's what I've been using, and it is helpful for the keyword research, especially. I find that to be quite useful. So that was a great breakdown, and it sounds something you mentioned in there was like live ceremony music. Perhaps if someone has like a really obscure offer, like I met a guy who plays like dulcimer or whatever. It's like a harp that you play with a hammer. Like literally, no one knows what that is, right? So it's like, what do you do? Like maybe going for like the more broad approach for people who are just in the discovery stage who might be open to something unique like live ceremony music. It sounds like you're saying like maybe go for that approach, do your keyword research, but make sure it's in alignment with you and something people are searching for.
Yeah, and sometimes you might have to go with more of an educational blog post strategy.
Right.
So you say this dulcimer example, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder if people are searching for unique wedding ceremony music because
Right.
they might
Yeah.
not know dulcimer exactly, but that would indicate if someone was searching that they're looking for something different, that the
Right.
dulcimer
Right.
would probably be a really good fit for them. So
Hmm.
maybe that artist could do a blog post about unique wedding ceremony music options include their instrument as first on the list, and then provide a few other helpful options as well. So sometimes blog content, when you're doing something that's a little bit more obscure, is a great way to pull searchers in, and then you get the opportunity to actually sell to them what you have to offer.
This is beautiful. Thank you so much. This brings so much clarity because these are things I've been like kind of stuck on before in the past. I'm like, what is the best approach? But yeah, I think that there's always a creative solution. So if you're making something beautiful people will love, there's a way that you can get them to find it. You just gotta do the research and think about a strategy that will work for you. So I love that. I'm curious. We're kind of like talking a little about blogging, and some people might be like, freezing up at that that thought right there. So let's just go through again, if we're thinking back to just starting with the basics, what are the basics pages that like most people, music pros or wedding professionals in general should have on their website? What are those core pieces of content that are important to have on a website? And when does blogging come into that? When is that a part of the picture, or would you recommend it being part of the picture?
Yeah. So for SEO reasons, the content you need on your website is pretty fairly simple. You need a home page, you need an about page, you need probably a services or offerings page and a contact page.
Hmm.
Your home page is the one that's going to be most likely to rank. So I always like to say that as you're thinking about SEO, I don't want you to put all of your words and all of your effort over on about and services, because it's actually the home page where it's a really good place to deliver a lot of content about what you offer and what makes you special. It's not a great place to just like plop in one YouTube video and then some buttons that encourage people to click on further. Like, we want to see a lot of written content on the homepage to
Hmm.
help Google to immediately understand what you do. And then the About page is a great place where Google is actually starting to look for information about your expertise and authority. So it's a great place to say how long you've been doing this. How long have you
Hmm.
had your business, or how long have you been performing in your particular instrument? Anything that would establish your credibility, your expertise, and your authority, I want to see it on your About page. So really think about that. It's also a great place to mention where you're based or located. So Google is looking at the About page to understand your location. So About page is definitely important. It's not usually the page that actually ranks on Google, but it's a place where Google is looking for a lot of clues. And then
Hmm.
services or offerings. So if you have multiple offerings, so sometimes we use service pages to align with what people are searching for. So again, like if you wanted to optimize the homepage of your website for string quartet, but then you wanted to have a services page about live wedding ceremony music, that would be a great way to possibly target two different keywords. And you'll talk about how you're a string quartet on the homepage, and then on the wedding ceremony music page, you can more tailor your messaging toward that person who's looking for ceremony music. And you can talk about how beautiful it is when the person walks down the aisle and the live musicians are playing. You can give a list of songs that you know how to play. So possibly use service pages to break down different things that people are searching for on Google. And that's
Hmm.
a great strategy to help you get found for more than just one keyword.
That's fascinating. And a few directions I want to go there, but the one thing you mentioned is like the service page, how, all these pages we can target them for different keywords. Is it important when you're designing a page to make it just for intentional on one keyword that you really want to get found for, or is it possible for an overlap? Because I'm imagining a service page, you might have multiple services like ceremony music or reception music. It would be better to keep those together under services, and just focus on how would you approach that if you have different keywords in mind is I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So, what we really like for SEO and what Google is really looking for is the best piece of content on the internet about a certain topic. And
Right.
that means that sometimes the Google robot can get confused if you have
Mm.
one page and you're listing all sorts of different things on that page. So,
Mhm.
I love a general services page that lists everything that you have to offer just so the visitor knows. But if you can create a more in depth, separate page about your key services, that's going to
Mhm.
work better for Google. So I'm imagining you have your main services page, and then you have a drop down and an individual page for live wedding
Mm.
ceremony music. And that's what
Right.
you'll want to do, is actually separate pages going in depth on each of the services you want to rank for SEO.
Fascinating. So the pages that we really want to get found, like, are designed for a keyword. It should be one specific search term that we have in mind, and we shouldn't try to like overlap things. It should be specific for that one phrase. That's
It
very
should.
helpful. Yeah,
And it's
awesome.
actually a lot better for the searcher. I want you to really think about the person.
Hmm.
A lot of us in SEO think about Google and think about the robot. And we're like, well, what
Right.
works for the robot? What do they want to see? But imagine that searcher is searching for wedding ceremony music in Dallas. And the page that they find on your website through Google is all about your wedding ceremony services. And then it's
Hmm.
just a wonderful experience because you know that's exactly what they were looking for, and you're able to really speak to that person and really sell to them in a better way, as opposed to dumping that person on a page that has 5 different things that you have to offer. And you're like, oh, I can do this for corporate events, and I can do this for private parties, and I can do that over there. That's not as compelling as actually delivering the searcher exactly what they were looking for in really in depth service information.
I love that. One thing that you mentioned there that I want to just highlight real quickly is when you're talking about the about page, I found that very interesting how you're saying how important it is to talk about your credibility. So I feel like what you're inferring here is that the Google bots can read through the content and basically get a gist if this is someone who's credible based off of the info you have there, like how long you've been in business and these types of details. So is it, first of all, did I understand correctly? Is that what you're saying, that the credibility component is important and can be detected?
Yes. So, not to get too
Wow.
technical, but Google has rolled out something, kind of a new focus. It's called EAT: expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
Okay.
And that means that Google's trying to figure out which websites are actually created by someone who's credible. Because
Mhm.
there's a lot of websites out there where someone just slaps up a website and they don't actually know much about their topic. We don't see this a
Mm.
lot in the wedding industry, but imagine in other industries how dangerous that could be. Like, a
Right.
medical blog gets slapped up on the internet. Google wants to make sure that they're only showing credible sources for information where it's really important for people to find the right answer. And it's similar when someone's going to pay a professional. Google wants to promote good businesses, not scam artists that just showed up last week. And so that's why expertise and authoritativeness, trustworthiness, credibility, all of these things, we need to express them to Google. Like, hey, I've been around for a while. I know what I'm doing. I've done this many events or this many gigs or this many weddings. Anything that a person would want to hear from you in the sales process that would make them feel more comfortable is something you should consider putting on your about page, because it may also help Google to see you as more credible.
That's very interesting. I'm glad that you spoke to that, because we often think that it's just a robot that's just going to look for keywords, but it seems like, they can, it can make some sort of sense out of the actual information you're putting
Mhm.
out there. So that's very interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that. I'm also curious, opinion on this, because sometimes I'm working with a musician and I often feel like the diagnosis that people will stick on themselves is like, oh, people aren't finding me. But sometimes it's a case where, like, oh, actually, like, you are findable, maybe not like the top ranking, but maybe there's another problem here. Sometimes it's like the website itself isn't converting. And I've, like, in my experience and like research, these things do work together. When a website is good, it will help it rank. So can you speak a little bit to the actual user experience and design of a website, and how, for the sake of the people on it, that's also an important part of overall SEO strategy? Do you mind sharing a little bit of your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's so easy to, when you're not getting enough inquiries or bookings, to just say, "Well, I need more traffic." Like, traffic
Hmm.
must be the problem. No one must be coming to my website, and that must be why my inbox is empty and I'm not getting the work that I want. But you're right. In a lot of cases, people are coming to the website and they're just not converting. I actually had a really interesting makeup artist client a few weeks ago, and she said,
Hmm.
"Everything's going well for bridal makeup, but I'm not really booking any of my microblading services. Can you help me with that for SEO?" And I looked it up, and she was already number one on Google for the keyword we would have
Hmm.
targeted. But I looked at the page and realized that all the call to action sent people looking for an eyebrow service. That's what
Hmm.
microblading is. Sent
Right.
people to a wedding specific contact form. And so I said to
Oh,
this client, well, these people don't know how to fill out this contact form that's asking them how many people need services and what time should your makeup artist arrive, because it's
right.
not relevant. And so, not necessarily SEO related, but it's so important to really take a critical look at your website. If it's getting
Mhm,
some traffic that you're able to see, but doesn't seem to be getting any inquiries, you got to do kind of an audit. Like,
mhm.
again, put yourself in the visitor's shoes. Is it easy to figure out how to contact you? Does your contact form have way too many fields in it where people are probably like, oh, I don't even care. I don't want to fill out this much information. Is it confusing to navigate? Have you not provided enough information to make them feel comfortable that you have what they're looking for? So, all of these things do work together, and just driving more traffic isn't always the answer. And I'm totally fine saying that too. Like, SEO is not always the answer. Sometimes there are other things at play that need to get taken care of before SEO can be as effective as possible.
Yeah, I love the way you put that because, again, it's that problem that when you're the one creating something, things become so familiar and we forget that we're making mind, or we don't realize we're making these mental leaps that people who are just like scrolling on the internet aren't going to make with us. So it's so important to put yourself into your visitor's shoes and like, what is that experience? What's actually happening here? Is the website itself selling? Because I know there can be this doom loop that's creating if people, you might be getting found, but if people are leaving right away, then Google will see that people aren't engaging and this doesn't help either. So it's, I love how you brought that all together, how it all works together as one cohesive system. So it's important to look at the whole picture. So with that said, I'm
Yes.
curious if there's someone who's like, um, you know, in that situation where maybe there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I know a lot of us pro musicians, we've been spending our time becoming pro musicians, and other wedding vendors, we're focused on that, not as much on the website. But now we're, rolling up our sleeves, we're getting ready to make some changes. I'm curious, what considerations do you make when someone's doing a big overhaul of their website? Are there any precautions to take when it comes to, both like improving the content for SEO and also the design for, the user experience and all of that? Are there any precautions you take when it comes to making sure rankings don't drop for things that are already ranking? Any precautions to take if you decide to switch to a new website editor? A lot of different things we can get into there, but I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah. So, the number one thing that I will say to anyone redesigning a website is you need to understand if Google and SEO is actually driving traffic to your website and creating business for you.
Hmm.
Because I don't want to make anybody worry unnecessarily. If you're like, hey,
Right.
no one's finding me on Google right now, then I'm like, it doesn't matter. Then do whatever you
Right.
want, make that website better. It's fine, and work on the new website to optimize it better.
Hmm.
However, if a business owner actually is ranking well, can see that that traffic is coming from Google and doesn't want to lose those rankings, the number one thing I would recommend is to hire an SEO professional. And I don't always push hiring an SEO pro. I think people can learn a lot of things about SEO on their own, but there's a lot of
Hmm.
considerations in a migration,
Hmm.
especially platform change. There's a lot of things you need to think about and make sure that they don't break in that
Hmm.
transition. So, just a few things that we do in our migration service is, first of all, we take a look at all the URLs on the current website, essentially the addresses of each page, because the
Hmm.
most common mistake in a website redesign is that you change the locations of your pages and you don't set up redirects. So, everything that Google knows
Hmm.
about you ends up broken in the search results. A good
Hmm.
example is, I see this all the time. People change their contact page. It used to be at /contact. Now it's at /contact us. And then all of the old links that might exist to your contact page are now broken links. So you either
Hmm.
need to keep those URLs the same or set up redirects so that the user and Google can find the new locations for the same content on your new website. So that is like step number one, the most important thing we do in a migration. And the second is we actually take a look using Google Search Console, which is a free tool from Google. We take a look at what keywords each page on the website is ranking for. And we want to protect and optimize those pages similarly if those pages are really working. So you've got that wedding ceremony music services page, and we can see that it brings in 50 visitors every single month. Well, we don't want you to lose those 50 people. So we need to make sure that the new site has a similar page that's just as well optimized, and make sure that all the keywords are in the right places. So we don't want to just make that page disappear and move to just having a general services page that lists all sorts of things, because you're probably going to lose those rankings. So keep your URLs the same or redirect them, and make sure content that's working gets recreated on your new website. I would say those are the top two considerations.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I'm so happy that you clarified that because there's like this fine line where it's like, okay, a lot of SEO things you can learn and do yourself, but if you already are having results, like achieving results, but you are looking to do a redesign, then it seems like it's a nuanced situation in a lot of cases where there's too much risk involved to not make sure that you're consulting with someone who can look at your specific situation. So I'm glad you brought that up because that seems like an important scenario to make sure that you're not making the wrong calls on something that might, have a big
Yeah.
impact on your future traffic. So I'm glad you brought that
Hmm.
up. Yeah.
And I like the word risk because it
Mm.
is a risk. If
Yeah.
you're driving significant traffic and business,
Hmm.
it's a risk of losing it. And I'm not saying
Right.
that you should never redesign your website. I've had people come to me and they're like, I have this 7-year-old website I don't really like, but it ranks well on Google and I've been afraid to update it. I'm like, I don't want that for you and your business, because now you probably have website shame and you don't even want to send anyone there. So I want you
Right.
to have a website that you love, but you just have to be careful. And if your rankings are that important to you, it's a great time for a professional to step in and help you make sure that you've done everything you need to do.
Love that. That's perfect. And then there's going to be so much more sense of like, confidence that you can make a redesign and changes when you have someone else looking at it with you rather than just making a guess and, making those mistakes that are so common. So that's super important. I'm curious what your opinion on the different, you've mentioned different website builders. Do you have an opinion on different website builders? Does it actually influence SEO at all, or does it not matter? I'm curious.
So, if you would have asked me this question in 2017, I had pretty strong opinions on which website platforms to use, which ones to avoid. But the good news as of 2024 is that all of the major website platforms that we see and work on have really good SEO settings involved. Some of them have
Okay.
different options, but I have seen websites on all sorts of different platforms rank on the first page of Google. So on my
Hmm.
team, we work on WordPress, Showit, Squarespace, Wix, and Weebly. We do a little bit
Hmm.
on Pixie Set for some of our photographer clients. All of those are totally fine. And Squarespace in particular has really worked on improving their platform. Wix has as well. So if you've heard people in the past say, oh, those platforms are terrible for SEO and that's why I don't use them, I would caution you to update your information. And I always want a small business owner to choose the website platform that they feel is easiest to actually keep updated. I don't want anyone to choose WordPress, for example, just because they think it's good for SEO if they find it
Hmm.
really confusing to use and they'll never update their own website. So it's way more important that you feel comfortable editing your website, adding more content to it, adding more videos or audio files when you have them. I want you to feel comfortable doing that. And so I want you to choose a platform not based on SEO, but based on how easy it is for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, that's perfect. I'm glad that that's the truth. I was hoping that was the truth, but I'm glad that's the truth because it's incredible how accessible it is for anyone to be able to, make their business, make a website, and just the results that can come from that. So I love empowering people to DIY when they can, if it's something that they're into. It's not like you have to do everything yourself in your business, but if you want to use a platform and learn how to do SEO, it's definitely an option and something that's accessible. So I think that's exciting for those who are interested in, diving in and making things happen with that route. So that's great. I've always been a Wix user, so I'm glad that
Yeah.
it's on your list. Yeah,
Yes.
they've
Wix
been
has
good.
done a great job in the last few
Yeah,
years, really focusing on SEO, bringing in great
right.
professionals to work on their platform and create content for them. So I've been really impressed with Wix.
That's awesome. And that segues into the last thing I wanted to touch on here. And you were kind of hinting on the importance of being able to manage your own website, go in there and update things. And the other side of that is maybe to be able to track and keep an eye on things. So let's move to the tracking part because that's kind of two questions. When it comes to someone who wants to work on their SEO and work on their website, and it's kind of this long-term game sometimes where we forget what we did a few months ago or what results we were expecting. And, for a business owner who's like most of the time doing other things, jumping into SEO related metrics and understanding that can be a bit overwhelming. And even for me personally, and when I try to focus on it, it still is always like this, confusing thing to get into those analytics and try to understand actually what's happening every once in a while. So I'm curious if there's any tools or best practices that you would recommend when it comes to someone who wants to keep an eye on their website, who wants to keep it updated and see that it's improving. But what's the simple approach to doing that? Any sort of analytics that you would encourage them to just look at this and that's all that matters, ignore anything else? Or if there's a simple answer, I'm curious what it is. It's okay if there's not.
I wish there was a simple answer. I
That's
think
okay.
the industry standard is Google
Right.
Analytics,
Right. Right.
but with the recent move to Google Analytics 4, I find it much more confusing out of the box for a website
Right.
owner to actually like log into Google Analytics and actually get helpful information. So if anybody listening has felt like that, I get it. I feel like that too. I do not love Google Analytics 4. Apparently, it's a lot more customizable. You can create a lot of reports and track a lot of things if you're a professional data analyst. But for most
Right.
of us, it's really hard to follow. The good news is there's a couple platforms that have built in analytics where they've tried to make their interface a little bit simpler. I know Squarespace has that. Does Wix have built
Mhm.
in analytics too?
It does, and I was also curious if that was, like, reliable or not. I don't know why I was skeptical about it, but I was, like, trying to use Google Analytics 4, and I felt I'm glad it's not just me, it was hard. I'm like, "What is this?"
I
So, yeah, if I can
know.
just look at Wix, then I'm happy. That's a good solution for me and maybe for others who have it. But
Yeah.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
none of
confusing.
them are perfect. Definitely
Right,
none of
right.
them are perfect, and none of them are going to give you the same answer. So if you have Wix
Mm,
Analytics and Google installed on your site, they're going to track what a visit means in a different way. So don't
got
be
it.
surprised if you see different numbers in different places. Overall, what you want to see is that your traffic improves and increases over time. So that's the number one thing that you want to take a look at is probably traffic sources. So figure out how to figure out where your users are coming from because you might be spending a lot of time on something. I don't want to throw out something there, but you might be spending a lot of time on one form of marketing. And then when you look at your data, you realize it's not driving a lot of traffic for you. I
Mhm.
had a venue owner student who said to me, I really would have thought with the amount of time we spend on social media that that would have been one of the key ways that we drive traffic to our website, but it's SEO. And I
Mhm.
was like, yes, I believe it. And I know it's true. So
Yeah.
it's important to get that information. So that's the number one thing that I think you should take a look at and just figure out in whatever analytics platform you use is where does your traffic come from, and then figure out how to change the date range. In Google Analytics, it's usually in the upper right corner. Change the date range or try to compare date ranges so you can actually see, are you trending up? Have you gotten more visitors in the last 3 months versus the prior 3 months? Have you gotten more visitors in the last 3 months versus the same time last year? That's also a really important thing to look at, especially in a seasonal business. If you're in the wedding industry, everyone's going to think that they're terrible at digital marketing in the second quarter of the year because engagement season's over. Everybody's
Right.
stats go down from
Mhm.
like March to May. And that's
Right.
okay. But you have to take a look at this time last year and are you doing better than this time last year? That's when you know you've really made progress.
I love that. That's brilliant. No, thank you so much for yeah, breaking that down of what's important to look for because if you know what traffic sources are driving, visitors to your website, then you know what to double down on. And yeah, I have the same thing to say about social media. Like I've avoided it for I'm not the biggest there. I do see its benefits and people go there often after as a portfolio to check you out, but it's for most wedding pros, it's not going to be driving your traffic. It's going to be search. And things like that. So really important that you brought that up. So thank you so much. I could keep nerding out with you all day here, but we don't have all day. So tell us about, because I know you have Wedding SEO Bootcamp coming up, which is super exciting. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about what Wedding SEO Bootcamp is all about and how they can get in on that? I know I'll have a link below in this video here, but yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Wedding SEO Bootcamp is my favorite thing that I do all year. And in 2024, I'm only going to teach my live program one time. I will be doing a live round of Wedding SEO Bootcamp, which is my group program for wedding professionals who want to learn how to set up their own SEO. It's a really approachable 4-module course that you can go through at your own time. So everything's pre recorded. And the idea of it is it's designed to help you actually get your SEO set up and then move on with your life. So I like to promise my creative wedding business students, this is not about teaching you everything I know about SEO in 4
Right.
days. It's about teaching you what you need to do just to get your basics set up and pointed in the right direction. Includes tons of blogging strategies, ideas on how to get more links to your site. So all of those different things that Google's looking for, I'll walk you through that in Wedding SEO Bootcamp, and I would love for everyone to join me.
Amazing. It sounds like a lot of fun. And yeah, January is the perfect time to do such a thing because, yeah, engagements will be coming in and inquiries by a week. Most of us have a little bit of a breather when it comes to actual performances and all that. So great time to, dig in and start to invest in your business and yourself that way. So thank you so much for sharing. And in general, where can people find out about you? I know you're easy to find on Google, but tell us, point us in the right direction anyways here.
Yes, let us hope if you type in wedding SEO into Google, my website will be first. You're going to be looking for saradoesseo.com. So, Sara Does SEO is where you can find me on every single social platform, Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all the places. And I would love to connect with you. I'm probably most active on Instagram.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Sara. This was a ton of fun. Yeah, thanks again, and we'll talk again sometime.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.